When going on this journey, we have to ask ourselves several questions. And there are a couple questions I teach people to think about throughout time. And one of them is to make sure and ask yourself, are you keeping an open mind? It is very important that you keep an open mind. An open mind allows you to change your perception, to understand that reality is not necessarily what you've been taught by your teachers, by your academics, governments, parents, families, friends, those sorts of things. You need to keep an open mind and understand that you may be wrong. You may be experiencing reality wrong. We need to keep an open mind because we may not understand the past the way we were meant to understand the past because we're understanding it from the level of consciousness that we experienced it at. So when people come to me about ET experiences, they often talk about fear and how it was a fearful experience, and I can walk them through it and be like, okay, but it was a fearful experience at the level of consciousness you had, and because of programming and because of different things that you've experienced in society, but you have gone beyond that. So now you can reframe what that experience was and actually look at it and try to figure out, okay, what was the truth of that experience? Was it really a fearful experience, or was it a benevolent being that came to you and you were experiencing it fearfully from a lower level of consciousness? So we have to keep an open mind for our past experiences, for our beliefs, for everything that happens in our reality, and for future things that come. Even in the moment, I know my perspective might change and that I have to keep an open mind to grow and to learn more. So that is very important. One of the other questions I tell people to ask themselves is, what do you know? Think about that for a second. Even if you feel like the urge to pause this video, pause and think about that for a few minutes. What do you really know? What do you know? When we think about that, and it's something I had thought about a lot on my journey, when you think about that, you know, or you think you know, things that were taught to you by parents, family, friends, teachers, employers, governments, religions, corporations, all these different places. You think you know things because they disseminated information to you, but you don't actually know those things. You just know the information they told you from the perspective they told you, from the level of consciousness they told you from. You never actually experienced it. If you don't experience something, you cannot truly know it. If you don't experience something, keeping an open mind and being willing to grow, you can't truly know the experience. Kind of like the experience of a fearful experience with an ET. You might have this fearful experience, but you don't truly know the truth of that experience if it's clouded by lower consciousness or by preconceptions and other things. So you have to ask yourself, what do you truly know? And when we think about that question, we're able to go, all of our academics, all of our history books, all of the things governments say, all of these other things, we don't know any of it. It could all be a fabrication and a fiction because none of it, for the most part, for most of us as the general public goes, have not experienced it. And one of the examples I like to use is a blue whale. A blue whale is a very good example of this. A blue whale is 89.9 meters, and I actually have the book right here. So I'm going to pull it up and make sure I have the right numbers. 89.9 meters, I believe. Oh, sorry, no, not meters. That was way off. 29.9 meters, 87 feet. I had the 80 wrong. 29.9 meters, 87 feet in length. It's enormous, enormous. One of the biggest creatures on the planet that is known in modern times. Now, here's the thing. How many of you have actually experienced a blue whale? It's a very legitimate question. How do you know a blue whale exists? Think about that for a second. Most people will answer with, I've read about it in our biology books. We were taught about it in school. We know biologists who have worked with them in academics. There's video evidence, photographic evidence. There's all these things. Do you truly know a blue whale exists, though? Could those all be a fabrication? Could they be a manipulation? Could they be a distortion based on level of consciousness? Could they be something else? Have you ever seen a blue whale? Have you ever touched a blue whale? And if you haven't, the answer is you don't actually know that it exists, because you can't. You can't because you haven't experienced it. And this is how you reframe your mind around spiritual experiences and ET experiences, especially people who are struggling with this idea of the church telling them what was real or academics telling them what is real. You have to just simply ask the question, what do you know? And realize that unless you've experienced it, you do not know one way or the other. Does the blue whale exist or does it not exist? It can be in both states. It's kind of like the cat, not Pavlov's, Schrodinger's cat. I lost it there for a second. It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. You put the cat in the box, and while the cat is in a box, sealed tight, no air holes, nothing, you have no idea whether the cat is dead or alive. It can exist in both states at once, because you do not actually know if the cat is in the box, if it's alive or dead. Same with the blue whale. You don't know if the blue whale is real or not real because you've never experienced it. You haven't gone out to the ocean. You haven't stuck your hand out and pet a blue whale. Same with spiritual experiences, ET experiences, angels, faeries, whoever they are. You don't know they exist until you experience them. And until you experience them, you don't know if they don't exist either. So having a firm belief around one or the other is invalid because you can't actually understand that they exist without questioning whether or not they exist. And the whole point is to question everything about reality. And what happens is when you do this, you start to realize how much of the world is actually a fiction, how much of it has been twisted and manipulated, and how much of it is lies and deceit, all these things to control us, because we accept initially, until we wake, we accept what we're told at face value. We accept history as we're told it. When I grew up, we were told the Spaniards came to Mexico and conquered the Aztecs, and that the Aztecs were primitive people. But if you actually question, make the question, what do you know? You realize that when you study the histories of both sides, the Aztecs were extremely advanced. The Spaniards' journals talk about how advanced this society was and how they were more advanced than England, than Spain, I should say, not England, but Europe, Spain. How they had clean markets, how they were able to have all these people and cleanliness and all these different things to have a better version of society. Those are in the Spaniard journals. They don't teach that in school. They teach that the Aztecs were primitive, that they were violent, that they were these other things. They also don't teach about how the Aztecs came to be, how they were taken over by, they were originally, I think it was the Toltecs, and then the Aztecs came in and took them over by manipulating the beliefs of the gods and saying, hey, your gods are actually our gods, even though they weren't the same. They had a violent god, and the Toltecs had a peaceful god. They were able to convert people by doing this whole thing of twisting the religion in their favor. You don't know that because you're not taught that. Like, we're not taught that in schools. We're not taught that in history books. We're taught the Spaniards went and conquered Mexico, and Aztecs were bad because they were sacrificing people or doing this and that. That's what I was taught in high school. So you always have to question what you know, because there's more to the story. There's more information that you're being told, whether it's the news media, whether it's politicians, whether it's academics, whoever it is. There's more to the story that you're not aware of because you're not experiencing it. And even in those stories that we get out of history books and stuff, we don't know the whole truth because we didn't experience it. We weren't there. So we always have to ask this question of, what do I know? And look at things and go, have I experienced it? What do I know about it? If somebody tells you they saw a Sasquatch in the woods, before dismissing them or believing them outright, you have to ask yourself, what do I know? What do I know from my experience? Have I had my own experiences? Have I experienced consciousness? Have I experienced ghosts or paranormal phenomenon or other things that I can go, hey, that's a possibility? But when you ask, what do you know? Everything is a possibility. Everything is a possibility because, like Schrodinger's cat, you don't know which possibility actually exists. And it's a way of waking up your mind to this idea that there's more out there, that there are ways of thinking, ways of living, ways of believing, ways of seeing, ways of experiencing that are completely different from what we've been taught as children. It all stems from this question of, what do you know? Um, you know, another one is colorblind people. There are colorblind people out there. There are people who don't see specific colors. There are people who, when you put colors on top of each other, they don't see, like if you've ever seen the colorblind tests where they do, I think it's a green circle with all these dots in an orange or yellow number in the center. Somebody who's colorblind does not see the number in the 7. If you're not colorblind, you can see the number in the center. It does not mean that either reality is invalid, because it's valid to the person who's colorblind, and it's valid to you. You experienced the 7, so to you the 7 is real. They didn't experience the 7, so to them the 7 is not real. It's not there. You're both experiencing reality, but you're using your senses. You're using your senses to experience, and your senses are flawed. And I'll talk about that more in the future of this course about reality and your senses. But the idea is, both of you are right and both of you are wrong. Because to one person, the reality is there is no 7. To the other person, the reality is there is a 7. You're both right. It just depends on which one you talk to. And that's this whole idea. Question, what do you know? How are you experiencing reality? What have you experienced? What can you see? What can you perceive? What is your truth? Or are you just being told the truth? Are you just being told by somebody that there is a 7 there? That there's a number in the circle? But in reality, they're just manipulating you. They're just lying to you. There's just deceit. Or is the 7 really there and you can't see it? That's the real question. Is there something really there and you just can't perceive it? You can't see it. You can't experience it because you don't have the senses. You don't have the awareness to see it. It's a very big question, a very big concept of understanding moving forward. If you move forward with this course, always question, what do I know? Do that throughout your day. It will change your life completely. If you start asking that of your experiences, even of your daily life, somebody's talking to you and you start asking yourself, what do I know? Are they telling me the truth? How do I figure it out? And you start going down this line of thinking. How do I figure out that what they're telling me is part of my reality? It's part of my world. How do I know that's real? And the truth is, it all comes through experience. And that's what this course is designed to do, to teach you to answer the question, what do I know, on a spiritual level, so that you can experience, so that you can believe, so that you can have your own encounters and experience what I know to be the truth. And that is, there are more beings out there. There are more beings on this earth than there are humans. And that many of them are benevolent for the most part, full of love, full of light, on their own ascension paths towards source, and that we can experience them, and it does make the world a magical place, and that not everyone has to live in this idea of a controlled reality, controlled in debt, controlled in healthcare, controlled in other ways, that you can break free of that. That's what I know. But as you're watching this video, you have to question, what do you know? Is my reality something you can know? And that's what I'm going to shift as we do this course. And so it can get a little confusing there in the end, but always ask yourself, what do I know? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of spirituality, questioning the world. And that question alone will take you leaps and bounds farther than many of the things in this class. If you just start questioning everything in your reality and going, what do I know? Is this my truth? Is this my reality? And if it's not, figure out how to understand what is the truth of your reality. And we'll talk about that more as time goes on. Thank you again for watching. This is the What Do You Know chapter of Unleash Your Spirit. And I am grateful for each and every one of you. If you have any questions or concerns, leave comments, message me, that sort of thing. And then we'll continue on to the next topic, which I believe is, is it all real? Questions are the battle. So we're going to go into more questions next. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the course.